You can both use it.
Push that one? Yeah, you got her? Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you out to the Big Plains Water and Sewer Special Service District meeting. We'll open the meeting and have a moment of silence until Neil makes it.
He's a little slow nowadays.
Let him know how important he is.
He's important.
Yeah. We did. Think it's something that happened on October 3rd.
Yeah,
Should we put
sort it out, put shit away, and then we got to build. She's got a baby tonight. Tomorrow, obviously, you have to.
She just dropped you off. She just dropped you off.
Oh, she is.
No,
We're on the holding pattern.
We're on a holding pattern.
We're waiting for you.
We were having
2 minutes.
We were having a moment of silence.
It's all.
Teenagers.
And it didn't work at the end of the day. It ain't gonna work out. Sorry about that, the speed commissioners.
Okay, well, just because we'll reopen the meeting, we'd like to call a meeting to order of the Big Plains Water and Special Service Sewer District. If you'd all stand, we'll pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call starting with Ross.
Ross Gregerson, present. Leo Buckner, present.
Harold Merritt, present.
Marty Lisenby, present.
Denny Bass, present.
Okay, on the agenda, we'll open up with Ross Gregerson had some comments that he wanted to make, so we'll turn the few moments over to him.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. During the past few months, it seems like there's a lot of things kind of going on with the SSD that aren't according to our charter. And some of the things that I've made notes of and I'd like to bring up. Number one, about 2 meetings ago, I asked that we get an interlocal agreement worked out. We know that we owe wages for man, and we know there's things that we owe, but there's been no effort put into that interlocal agreement. To be truthful, Ben was thrust upon us. We didn't hire you as the SSD. You haven't submitted an application. You haven't interviewed with us. And I think that's part of our duty as an SSD control board. I think you're a great guy and everything, but there was never the hoops that should have been done to be our accountant. I believe that the town should propose, and you're probably one that works it up, what your cost is to us. How much, what do we owe, and we need to start paying that. But we need to see the numbers as a control board. Then we would discuss it and pass it in an open meeting. The second thing that I troubled over, I hadn't seen it, I don't do much on the internet, but I'm troubled over things said about the SSD on the mayor's website. You've got people on this board that love this area, and all we want to do is provide safe water and dependable water. And when I see things that are misinformation, it bothers me. Marty, you mentioned in this thing that you didn't know what was going on with the Canaan pipeline. I'm just reading, I printed this. And I need to take exception to that because you and I and Ben met in my house and we discussed, because Harold had authorized me to try to work out something between the town and the SSD over the conflict over who owed who money. And the chairman authorized me to sit down and say, okay, what is it and how can we work this out? At that meeting, I gave you a copy, my only copy, one that was given to me, of the pipeline. And it showed the ups and the downs and the costs and what was going on with it. Back when that was in our meeting, I met with you and Ben on November 11th, 2018. That bothers me when I see things in print that aren't true. A lot of us didn't know this was a conceptual thing that Rod was working on. And it was the general consensus that we were going to try to get loans and grants to put the pipeline in. And along with that, they were going to refinance our existing debt. And the overall thing on there was our payment was going to go down. And your comment when you looked at it that day said, well, the interest rate's higher. And it was. And it was. And that was one of the upsides or downsides that brought, our interest a little higher. But we talked about that in a water meeting later, the fact that, yeah, so if the interest was a little higher, but all of a sudden we're not buying pumps, we're not maintaining pumps, we're not subject to a lightning strike to take the pumps out and lose water, and it was really a win-win thing. Along in here, you kind of said that Rod wasn't doing anything. And when in reality, Rod and Chairman Merritt have worked on this. Number one, we had to have an environmental study done. That was ongoing. It took almost a year. And he had to have preliminary engineering things done. So that was going on behind the scenes. And so I just dislike when I hear people saying, well, he wasn't doing anything because we didn't physically see it. After that period, and they got it submitted, when the environmental was done and they got it submitted, Chairman Merritt and Rod found out that the terms had changed. And it wasn't quite the deal that we were working toward, but this stuff does change, and state agencies change what they offer and don't offer. But they were on top of it, and Rod was on top of it. So that stuff just kind of bothered me. You and Denny Bass went to a USDA meeting, and you called me after that meeting on March the 12th. And I'd like to read the notes that we discussed, or that you discussed with me that morning. March. Sorry. Okay, my notes. Call from Marty. He had gone to the training with the state, went to lunch with Pam of the USDA. She told him we had not filed anything. We're losing our window of opportunity for the pipeline, and the grant percentage would be reduced. She told him that if you didn't like your engineer, there were better ones available. She worked a lot with Jones and DeMille from St. George, and we should use them. And that nothing is being done or happening on the pipeline. That was our conversation. That wasn't true. Rod was working behind the scenes, and Harold as fast and best we could to get through those hoops of the environmental and the preliminary. The other thing I'm concerned about has been put out in numerous town meetings how the SSD is broke, and the town has carried the SSD. and all this stuff, and I've heard it a number of times. I have here the billing history from the town of Apple Valley for the SSD. And in this, it shows all the payments. One statement was made in a public meeting that the SSD was just now buying postage stamps. And looking down through here, they paid them, the SSD paid them all along. And I could give the check. I don't know if this could be put on the town, in our meeting, entered in public record for this meeting, these charges? Is that something that's possible? I just researched, the payroll end of it. Okay? And it looks like, and by the way, this is before your time, Marty. You inherited this. But this kind of talks about what goes on when people say the SSD is broke. Okay, we begin in, there's numerous payments from the SSD for postage and office help and stuff like that. I'm just focusing on Dale Harris's charges. So in August 24th of 2015, the town billed the SSD $5,970 for, quote, 1/2 of Dale's wages. Now, Dale realistically was only spending about 20% of his time. But this was an arbitrary number created by the town and started billing the SSD. So $5,970 for half of your wages. Now, Dale was making about $20 an hour. So if you run that out, that's about $3,400 a month. Half of that is $1,720. So we're being overcharged $4,250. I know there's payroll expenses and things like that in there, but still, that was a huge overcharge by the town to the district. They did that for 11 payments. And at the same time, they billed us $1,800 for clerical. This would be for Nathan in the office and Marie, who answered the phone down there. She was there part-time. So in essence, the SSD was paying 5, 6, 7, almost $8,000 a month to the town, right? For, quote, half of your salary and these 2 office workers. There was no interlocal agreement. There was no discussion by this control board. It wasn't passed in a public meeting by us or by the town. Then after 11 months, they jumped it to $6,880 for the next 13 months. So that's about a $5,000 overcharge per month. And they jumped the clerical to $1,900. So they did that for 13 months, and then in November 30th of 2017, they changed it to $7,320 a month for Dale, half of his salary. You were getting rich, buddy. That was for 5 months, and they jumped the clerical to $1,950. This troubles me because we, the SSD, have been paying our way to the town way over. And yet, if you listen to public opinion and what's out there, oh, the SSD is broke. And yeah, no wonder we don't have any money when we're paying $8,000 or $9,000 a month with all these overcharges. There's numerous in these checks shows for paying for postage and copy paper and copy machines and leases and all that. We have paid our way all along. And I don't know, I wouldn't mind putting this in public record. I don't have another copy. I wouldn't mind this being posted so people really know what's going on and what went on. You know, no wonder we were broke. Look, I just want us to operate the way we're set up to be. Independent, with our own money and pay our own bills, and the control board do things the way they were supposed to do. We need to work together. We need to help support the chairman and the board and the district we need to focus on the water needs in this area, and not all this bickering and all this little meddling and stirring things up. We as a district don't want to be at odds with the town. We want to be a team. We want all of us to be a team. But it sure is disheartening. I don't even like to come to these meetings for that reason. Just all this stuff. But anyway, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry I got emotional about this, but it bothers me, and I think we need to do something about it. That's the end of my remarks.
Well, I appreciate your thoughts, Ross. I wasn't sure what you were going to talk about other than financial needs. I think that in looking at some of the paperwork the other day, I noticed that Ben had put, and on this one, had put interlocal agreement tabs as to where there should be numbers for the service district and for the town to agree on who's using what. So I would propose that we, since this is water under the bridge, that we in the next few weeks get together and get an interlocal agreement together, and it'd be helpful to you, helpful to us.
Is it okay if I speak to all of this? So on the interlocal agreement, I had tasked Ben with that for back in May, but it's also year end and closing out, and then it was auditors, and you know, some work was done on it. Give it to Sean, and then it sits there for a while. And I just had a conversation with Sean just a couple of nights ago about the interlocal agreement. He had some changes that he was recommending on the verbiage and so forth, and so it hasn't been forgotten. But at the same time, you know, to go back to the paperwork that you want to put in, it sounds like that most of this is previous stuff.
It's prior to you.
And
Yeah,
Motor
it's prior to
days.
you.
And I haven't done the research on that to be able to speak to that at all, but I think you'll admit that the town hasn't charged you anything for the whole year.
I know that, and I agree that we owe the town money. We don't want them for free.
But
Yeah.
the one thing that's missing from that equation is there's not any dollars in our budget for that. Yet we also have, because what we're planning ahead for is that payment come December, we want to be able to make that payment that's due, our big one, and trying to plan ahead for that is what that's been my goal, is to help the SSD to be able to pay that without any, you know, having to go swing a deal with some developer like they did last year. If that's how they made the payment last year, they couldn't make it, and we ended up swinging a deal with Jerry Eves and giving away $30,000 without even a water district vote on it. And so we've been doing this. I've been touching base with Ben on this, and you know, we're pretty much like, I asked him probably, I don't know, a few weeks, maybe a month ago, to forecast this out. How are we looking? Are they going to be able to make the payment? And his comment to me was probably, but it's tight. I think is that a fairly accurate statement on maybe what our conversation was?
Yes, money's in the bank.
Because so I've been touching base with him to make sure that the water district can make their payment. And right now, it's not killing the town to not charge you for Ben, because I've got to pay for him one way or another anyway. So it's not killing us to carry that right now. But it's, the reality is the money isn't there unless we have some development come online that all of a sudden we get another impact fee. I mean, we got that one from last year, and we still have some money in the bank to pay that payment. So the reason we're probably able to make that payment. But if you take the difference, if you work out what the town has saved the district in all of your costs with the salary, all the retirement and all the different things, add in the office expenses based on those 3 months you guys are operating on your own, annualize that out, you know, we're looking at $86,000 is what we've saved you guys. We've reduced your operating expenses that much money. That's the payment and then some. And what we're talking about, maybe coming up with our interlocal agreement is, you know, what's come out, maybe $3 grand or something, Ben?
Yeah, it was, 36,000.
And I like the way Ben put it to me, he says, but they don't have it in the budget to do it, where are we gonna get the money from? So I haven't been in a hurry because it's more important to me that you guys are able to make the payment at the end of the year. And at some point when we maybe get another, subdivision on board or some, influx of cash, then, I'm happy to do an interlocal agreement, but it's still not in the budget and it hurts you to be able to make that payment.
That's good, a conversation for another time, but I'm glad that we're talking about it, and we need to get it together and.
I'll have some paperwork for you. We can look at it and then give it to you, you guys can discuss it and,
Yeah,
we should have it ready another week or so. I just talked to, literally 2 nights ago, to Sean about the interlocal agreement, so it's not something we haven't.
Well, again, though, as a technical point, Marty, the interlocal agreement, if you're just drawing it up, it should have been between you and the chairman to work on, these are the items.
We gotta start somewhere.
I know,
We
but
hand
yeah,
it to
okay,
you,
okay,
then we hand it to
okay,
you.
then that'll start the discussion.
Right.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, and then that'll end up here with the control.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all, I just want us to run legally, that's all I want.
That's all.
And if we end up, if we don't really have, I thought we had enough money to make the payment, but if we don't, and we owe you, you can put it on the books and we'll owe you.
Yeah,
Right.
but putting it on the books doesn't, change,
Uh,
the picture on that.
Yeah, again, we're getting into the interlocal
Okay.
agreement, and it is a two-sided situation. The mayor and myself will, discuss it, the board will discuss it, town council will discuss it. This is an open situation, and, it's just something we need to have.
Just for clarity, the money is in the bank to make the January 1st payment.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is that all, Ross?
Yeah.
For the present, Mayor?
Hmm?
Is there anything else, or?
I can speak to a couple of things. He mentioned to me, that, regarding, Rod Mills, and, Rod Mills and I bumped into each other at the, water seminar. I was thinking it was February. Is that right? When they had that water thing down in St. George? We bumped into a convention together. I'm pretty sure it was in February. And that's where that conversation started, where I had actually ran into, USDA at their booth, at the water thing. And I asked her, why does it take so damn long to get these loans approved? We've been talking about this in our meetings for months. And that's when she says, well, you gotta apply for it first. And so that's where I brought to everybody's attention, including Rod's, like, really, we haven't even done the application? And that's what that was about. And she did not tell us to hire Jones DeMille, that wasn't her way of saying it. She just said that if you're not happy with who you're using, I know Jones DeMille and Sunrise Engineering, there's 2 of them that do business with us all the time, and both of them very capable, and she did not tell us to switch horses at all. That just, I want to clarify that. That wasn't my goal. It was, anyway, and then since then, we've had a conversation. Rod said that, well, we need engineering done on some studies, and those studies hadn't been ordered yet by the SSD because they cost us money. And that was several months ago where those hadn't been even started yet because of that. And my comments to you, if you want to go to that meeting, really had to do with my concern over, in February, learning that we didn't even have an application yet filled in, and that we had, I was remembering when the government shut down. Wasn't that like through December and November, December, right in that 2-month, 3-month period? And every month we're getting these updates, yeah, everything's going along fine, everything's going along fine, everything's going, and then, well, the government shut down, so I can't get any answers, and what answers would he get from the government shut down when we haven't even applied for a loan? And that just bothered me at the time, because he hadn't even applied for it at that time. I know we've got to collect information, do a lot of stuff. I'm not saying there wasn't even anything being done, it's just.
But one call to Chairman Merritt or Rod, you would have known what the underlying stuff was.
I called him, I called you.
Huh?
I did. I called it Harold Merritt, and I called you to alert you that, what's going on? Because we keep getting these updates in the meeting, everything's fine, we're going along, yet the paperwork hadn't even been started on as far as USDA goes.
Right.
Anyway, so a little context with, your comments, that I'm not trying to, when you and I, in fact, I want to add one more thing, because you mentioned it, I left there with a spreadsheet that had the payments and all the details. And Ben and I remember coming back, the payments you had down there were not even the right payments. Is that not right, Ben? It
This
seems
is going
like,
back a little bit, but I think there were some misunderstandings on the way things were.
in other words, the monthly bills that you guys showed were like 120, but really the payments are like over 200. And it was like one of the payments is some of them were monthly and they were counted annually, and there was something wrong in the math when we got back with that document, and that's where, you know, it was concerning both of us that who even knows what's really going on, so.
Well, gentlemen, let's get together on the interlocal agreement discussion and move on from where we're at. Water Superintendent Dale Harris, would you care to share some things with us?
First part of September, we had a 3.0 earthquake. Epicenter was in Hilldale. After I got a notification that we'd had the earthquake, I instantly went up to Canaan Springs. Our upper spring got ate by the earth. So where we're at now is that what it did is, when it did that, it shoved debris, of course, into the pipe. We've got the lower spring, and its flow is getting all but cut off because of what got into the pipe. So I, of course, instantly took samples to make sure that everybody was safe, in which I've been doing 2 investigative samples a week over in Canaan to make sure we're good. Since the system got kind of ate up there, of course, stuffed some debris in there, and that debris is getting tighter. So what we're doing is that tomorrow we're going to take a tanker and go from over here and start filling the Canaan to get us a little bit of a buffer, because we're not putting in the amount of water since we lost that spring. And then hopefully Monday morning, by latest Tuesday morning, I'll have a piece of equipment up there and we'll expose that line and get that plug out, so that we can at least be able to produce some water for Canaan until we can be able to get the repair done to the upper spring. So yeah, we're a little choked over in Canaan. We're doing all right. We've got all our bases covered. We're ahead of what's going on, and hopefully we can get it resolved quickly.
Okay, to clarify a bit, as soon as we found out about that, there were water samples taken, the federal government was notified, the state government was notified.
And the engineering office.
The engineering office in St. George was notified, and all of the things came together as to how are we going to solve this, because the springs took a real hit with that earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that process is how are we going to fix it. That they fell into engineering, and so I'd ask Rod Mills if he could tell us where we're at on that.
So, thank you. May I take a minute on another topic?
Certainly.
So, just to put the facts on the table, it was just suggested that the application wasn't put in for the original Canaan Springs funding. That is true. What is misunderstood and what doesn't seem to be standing in the light of day is the application is the last thing that goes in. There's a checklist that you have to fill out. When all of the items on the checklist are filled out, you are actually allowed to submit the application. They won't even accept the application until everything is checked off the list. So to say, what?
It said how all grants work.
Thank you. So to even put out the suggestion that we're sitting on our hands, and the verification and the proof of that is that we didn't have an application in place, is not correct. It is the truth that the application was not submitted. What Pam reported back was the truth. But the way it's being described is not accurate, and it's hard to hear. Because there was a lot of work being done. And I appreciate that somebody recognizes some of that effort. There were no bills for those. There have never been any bills for those. That was done on the agreement or understanding that if we were able to get some funding out of that we would have a discussion and go through a process to determine engineering and go through the normal procurement process for that. That never occurred. As a result, I got to hold the bag on that one. And instead of getting a little bit of credit for doing some of the work up front at my own cost, I'm getting labeled with sitting on my hands, not doing anything, and it's just not true. You take one truth and you turn it into something completely different, and it's hard to hear. It's just hard to hear. The environmental study was mostly done on my watch. The preliminary engineering report was all but finished on my watch. The major, more extensive effort associated with that program was done. What killed that project had nothing to do with engineering. It had to do with delays and bickering and conflict. Done. We'll close that book, okay? Because those are the facts. Okay, engineering report. We are in need of a source protection plan for well 59. It's an item that came up with the state, and we got to get after it. I need to put together some paperwork to get in front of the control board. That is required on all of our wellheads, and we need to move forward on that. So I did notify, well, actually the information came through Dell, which is the normal channel we'll all hear about it. And it's on me to get those documents in place. There are updates on most of the wells except for 59, which for us is a new well. Sorry, Jessop. And Jessop. Yeah. So for the most part, it's updates, but I need to get some information in, and I have not completed that work because we got some other things took precedence over that, which I'll discuss right now. You just heard from operations what happened in Canaan. Dale was quick to notify us about that. We started, he was monitoring the output from the springs from the day he found out, and what we've seen is sort of a downgrade of the supply to a point where we really needed to take quick action. So I shifted gears. We started work immediately on a grant application through USDA, which, mind you, we had a lot of the footwork done already. And we have applied for a grant that should help us get all of that online. From what I understand, money's become available starting this month. But there is an environmental process that we have to go through. And it allows for a 30-day response period from the people that were petitioning. Those letters have already gone out, so the 30-day time frame is ticking, starting right now. And once that is done, the USDA will be able to respond to the application that has been submitted. It's a 100% grant for rehabilitation of the springs and some pipe work.
Yeah, I might, not being an engineer, but in layman's language, what happened is that the hill was saturated, being full of springs. When the earthquake came along, it liquefied and moved on down on top of our collection apparatus. So
and the good news is it hasn't taken everything out of the Canaan system.
No.
But we're hurt. We got to get it fixed.
We're hurt, but the bad side would be if the springs were for damage. The springs are running probably better than they ever have. Kind of cleaned them out, we got water everywhere. And so the issue is gonna be getting the equipment in there, getting that cleaned out, putting in a collection mechanism that will collect the water and stabilize that area, and then be able to put it in pipes for what we need, and the rest will go to wastewater until we can pipe it elsewhere whenever that day may come. But we have plenty of water, the capturing apparatus took a real hit. And so, as I understand it from the people I've talked to, we have a 100% grant on this. We'll have equipment in there the first of the week. We'll start trucking water tomorrow. The water's being tested a couple of times a week. So we're keeping up on that. We're doing everything possibly can happen. We're in touch with the federal government, state government, and the local government, so everybody's aware of what's going on. Nobody's in danger of running out of water. All we have to do is get up in there and repair it. So we want everybody to know that those repairs will take place, and it won't cost the service district any money to have that happen. That system should have new pipe in it and a new collection apparatus, and we'll be better off than we were before. And so hopefully that's the way that'll go. Did you have any more comments on that, Ron?
Just simply point out that it's no small task, and it was a coordinated effort. I'm just delighted actually that we are at that place as quickly as we got there. So we should be getting feedback from the USDA literally starting tomorrow. We've been in constant contact with them, of course, because they shepherd the entire process, as they always do. That's no different than what we've seen in the past.
Any members of the board have any questions on
What's the approximate cost?
So the estimates that we put forward for the project are just under $750,000.
Well, thank goodness for a grant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rod and Dale.
And just wanted to clarify what was going on Monday, that's not part of going up and rehabbing all the spring. We're just going up, fixing that pipe. I got that shot down. Do I feel like it's in a 10-foot section? We're just gonna dig that up, replace that section so we can get some more water out of that lower spring. The biggest thing is our fire protection. We're good on water for everybody drinking, but you know, we just don't supply drinking water. We supply safety also, so.
Yeah. Okay, moving on, to item number 4. As I understand it, not having gone through this before, I need someone to make a motion to authorize me to authorize the USDA. Would you do that, Mr.
Okay.
Peterson?
All right, I make a motion to authorize Chairman Merritt to move forward with the authorizing the USDA to proceed with the project.
I second that motion.
Vote?
Aye.
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 Was this the project we just talked about?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In other words, I'm the contact guy with,
Sure.
with them, would be basically what it is.
I didn't say anything, I was just thinking it should have been a motion to recommend approval, you know, from the town council, and I'm sure they would do it in an emergency situation. I think that that we should move forward with it, absolutely, so. I'm gonna say yes on it, but it's.
Do you want it to be redone, or?
I just think that we should have a recommendation, but I still think that because of emergency, we need to move forward with this as well. So it'll be kind of like we'll approve it after the fact kind of thing, because this is absolutely has to happen, so.
Okay.
If you don't mind redoing that motion.
Would you do that, we authorize it with the consent of the town?
Okay. Okay. I make a motion that we authorize Chairman Merritt to move forward with the authorizing of the USDA to proceed with this project at Canaan with the consent of the town council, is that, or with the?
Sounds good.
With the ratification of the town council.
With the ratification of the town council?
I second that motion.
Second, you,
Vote aye.
aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Then we move on to the next one. Ben is familiar with this and he might,
I got one more thing to add for mine. The ditches in town are getting deeper and deeper. There was 2 ditches that were dug out on Smithsonian. We got 2 service lines now that only got 8 inches of coverage over them. The ditches are going way too deep and they're violating my minimum burial requirements. Diane Hope's service is just gonna freeze this winter. We got a hydrant that's in jeopardy of that too, because these ditches are going way too deep. If we keep going on this, we're gonna have service lines, folks, that are gonna be freezing all over town if we don't come to an agreement of how deep these ditches need to be able to operate without creating a safety hazard, so to speak, with the water system. So
Wouldn't this be part of the CO process where we go out and inspect that kind of stuff and just say it's too deep, you have to add some dirt to it or something? Is that a possibility?
I've
that we
already
don't
done
buy
that,
you?
Marty, and it's not happening.
You've requested that and it's not happening?
I
or-
requested it to you when you did the one on the corner. I said, we need to make sure, if you remember right, we had the conversation when Richard Fisher did this, and I actually called you and said, he's going way too deep, he's violating my minimum burial
Yeah,
requirement.
that was just a cleanup, though, that wasn't a CO operation, and so if Ben will make sure that we always call the water district and before any CO, to make sure you guys can go out and make sure that the hydrants weren't supposed to be. I mean, by then, it probably should have been signed off.
No, this doesn't have anything to do with placement. This happened,
No,
this
no, I'm
is
talking
someone
about, I'm
coming
talking
in.
about the ditches though, but my point is that we should be calling you guys to sign off on all that stuff.
Yeah, we just need to, once again, just work together of how deep we're gonna have these ditches, and then, we were designed to go 15 inches, and, because that's what the culverts were, and that's the way that the system went in. Because if you guys remember, right, all of those culverts went in when the system went in, so it was all, Rob was part of this, it was all engineered part of that. But now we're going so deep with these ditches, we're just, man,
So are culverts going in bigger than 15 inches?
the one that went back, I haven't measured it, but it definitely looks like it's at least about a 22 inch, the one that just got put on in front of,
Joe Parker.
who?
Joe Parker.
Well, that,
It's the intersection of Foothill and Smithsonian.
That's Joe Parker's, yeah.
and the size of the culvert isn't as critical probably as how deep the thing is right where your water line is, that's.
Well, the culverts, of course, the culvert's, 20 inch, you need to have your ditch 20 inch, or you just put a roadblock in the middle of your ditch. So anyways, yeah, just, it's not you guys that's doing it. I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
no,
I'm just
but
making.
we can help you guys, and that's.
I appreciate
We'll
that.
just make that part of the process where we're calling you before we do a CO, that way you have a chance to sign off on it, it's the appropriate thing to do.
Okay, I appreciate it. The ditch that just got dug though wasn't, people already lived there. They just hired a local contractor that went in and dug it way too deep. So Diane Hopes is, I get what you're saying with, because she's a new one, but the one that just got done that is deeper than Diane Hopes.
Can that be repaired, Dale? What they have?
Well, they just need to come back in and fill that ditch back up to where it actually will, for one, function and not wipe out our water lines or cause. I'm concerned about service lines freezing.
Who's the contractor on this, do you have any idea?
I do.
Fisher.
Yeah.
Fisher.
Is it Richard?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's just have a conversation, if he's digging too deep, and then we maybe nip it at the bud.
Okay.
Right up front, and.
Make him aware of what it is.
Yeah. I've done all that.
Just a footnote on that location, that particular parcel's had a lot of problems with flooding in the past. And so I'm sure the owner was concerned about making sure that was deep enough to prevent that from happening in the future. This last flood we had, the water was just nipping it going in this front door. So that also has to be part of the.
Well, that's that house on the corner, isn't it?
Yeah, Foothill and.
With a bunch of stuff in the
Yeah.
backyard.
And
Correct.
that water actually rips through his yard and goes through the parcel next door. That's the natural flow of the landscape. and he just happens to have that parcel, but I'm sure he asked Richard probably to make that a little deeper maybe than normal.
We just need to
I
get
have
some
personally
balance in there.
excavated out part of that section numerous times, but I don't go that deep, but I mean, I'm always taking dirt out of there.
Okay, well, gentlemen, can we take this up another time now that the subject's open? You guys can work on it where you have to. Item number 5, application for extension of well 59 grant and expansion project scope to include the Cook well, Jessop well, source protection work, fence and loan. Well, the loan number that we're talking about is given here. Would someone care to make a motion that we extend that loan for those purposes?
This is an old-time loan we've had, right?
And it's well 59, and we still have some money in that loan.
Just won't be able to use it.
But we won't be able to use it after, I think it's the 1st of November, or 8th of November.
8th
something
of
like-
November, yeah.
8th of November, and so we're extending it, and then we're gonna do some reclamation work on wells that are adjacent to 59.
So by extending, it means it gives us more time to use money. Is that-
Yeah, rather than just go
Sounds
throw
great.
it in the wind. and-
Sounds great.
And the money has to be used on, has to be used. on
Currently
specific-
has to be used on well 59. Michael Grange added clarification on that. It's, so there's $40,000 remaining, of which it's 50% loan, 50 grant. So if we didn't extend it, essentially the half, 20,000 would be put on, would be removed from the end of the loan period. So those are the two options, use it or you don't.
Or is it?
Yeah.
But this is work that has to be done on the wells right now, right?
Right, what we're doing, Denny, is basically on the Cook and Jessop, is they're single phase pumps.
Yeah.
And so we wanna convert them to 3-phase, so everybody's on the.
So I make a motion that we extend the loan. Number 35240.
0. And the scope of the loan.
And the scope of the loan, okay.
Okay,
I second.
vote,
Aye. Aye.
aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item number 6, there've been people ask about public comment. I've checked with the powers that be, and this type of meeting is normally doesn't take public comment, but thinking it over, I think if somebody has a technical question, something that they really want a good answer on, if they call Ben or Michelle and get it on the agenda, we'd be happy to address it, but we need an idea of what it's about so we can do some homework. Because some of these water questions just aren't something that you have, sometimes you hip shoot them and get yourself in trouble, so I'd like to have some time. So if you put your questions on the agenda, we'd be happy to take them starting next month. And then the easier questions to deal with that don't seem to be that complicated, feel free to give Dale a call, myself a call, or you can bring them up in the meeting if they're an easy answer thing. But normally if there's something that's kind of iffy in it, let's get it on the agenda and get you the right answer. But we'd be happy to do that. Does anybody have any comments on that approach to it? Any members of the board?
I think it's a good idea myself.
I like we've had so many people asking about it, and I just think we should have a public comment section. I mean, what's gonna go wrong, you know? I doubt anyone's gonna answer that hard of a question, we can't figure it out, so.
But I think it'd be a good idea in the next water bill or something, put a little note in there that anybody has any questions regarding the water and that they could call Michelle or get it on the agenda. So at least they know in advance what they're gonna do and then they send in the questions so we get the answers.
If somebody wants to know where a water line's gonna go or how long it is or whatever, they give us an idea of what they want, then we could have the information available for them, and it'd be, you know, it'd solve their problem and ours too, and get it done rather than kick it around and hit it next time, so.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, consent calendar. I've looked at it and I don't have any problems with it?
I read it, I make a motion, we accept the consent calendar for August 2019 as written.
I second.
Vote?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Okay. Minutes,
I read them,
9/5.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of, 9:25.
Second.
Okay, vote?
Aye.
I abstain, I wasn't here.
Okay. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is to
I
adjourn.
make a motion, we adjourn.
Second that motion.
Second, vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, Dale, before you take off, can I just see this?
Yeah.
And Mr. Mills?